Hi everyone. Thank you for joining our webinar today. I am Takaho Iwasaki, who is our speaker from MajiConnection. Today, I'd like to discuss a general overview of the Japanese e-commerce industry, current trends, and other interesting development in the e-commerce industry in Japan. Please note that I will not talk about any technical skills about how to start an e-commerce business in Japan or regulation and the rules that you have to follow. Please consider this webinar as a basic class to understand an overview of the industry for you to decide if you're ready for this market and establish a strategy to enter this market with the e-commerce site. So here's the agenda of today's webinar. First, I'd like to offer some insight into the e-commerce industry in Japan, which the data mostly comes from the Japanese Ministry of Economy, Trade, and Industry, followed by the history and the background of e-commerce in Japan. In the third part of this webinar, I'm going to introduce some of the interesting e-commerce business and the business development. Lastly, I will wrap up with a summary of this webinar and my recommendations. Okay, let's start the industry insight. This is the Japanese e-commerce industry market size change from 2010 to 2019. As you can see, the market size has been more than double since 2010, and it is estimated to become 2 trillion yen sometime next year. In addition, COVID-19 has accelerated the adaptation of online shopping technology for both consumer and the businesses. The industry is beginning to become more competitive. All the stores, retails, and wholesale businesses have started some kind of e-commerce platform or the side of business. Otherwise, they will miss an opportunity and lose businesses. The graph shows that the changes in the online shopping adaptation rate of Japanese industries since 2010. You can see how the adaptation rate is low compared to the overall Japanese e-commerce market size that I showed the last slide. Even the adaptation of e-commerce is not as prevalent in Japan as is in China or the US, according to 2018 data. This is because the e-commerce market size is large because the Japanese market is big. I will explain further reasons behind the low adaptation rate in Japan next slide. Here is a comparative analysis of how many actual physical stores exist compared to its population in different markets. Compared to in the US and England, the population per retail store is very low in Japan, which means that we have so many physical retail stores per person in Japan. Okay, it is still some complicated. So there's what I want to say from this analysis. Japan has enough physical stores covering our population, so the Japanese people don't feel inconvenienced by physical shopping as much as American or British people feel. While American people have to drive miles away and go to crowded Costco for grocery shopping, Japanese people just can't go walk for 5 minutes to get whatever they want at the convenience store. This is one of the reasons why the online shopping adaptation rate is not so high as in Japan. So, how is the size of cross-border of e-commerce market between China, US, and Japan? These are the graphs that indicate how much money each country spends buying from the other two countries. Not surprisingly, China's online shopping total is the biggest among the 3 countries. Compared to how much China and the US are buying from Japan, Japanese consumers don't buy much from outside of Japan. There are several reasons why we do not buy from outside of Japan. I believe the biggest reason is that the Japanese people are satisfied with domestic products, which are high quality and offered at the reasonable price. Another reason is due to the complicated regulations and the guidelines in order to ship the product to Japan too. These guidelines are also usually limited to only Japanese language. This situation makes it harder for a lot of non-Japanese retailers or manufacturers to enter the e-commerce business targeting Japanese consumers. If you'd like to know about more of these general barriers to enter the Japanese market, please watch our previous webinar. Let's go back to the Japanese domestic e-commerce market, where we can probably find consumer demand tendency and what drives Japanese consumers to engage in online shopping. When you look at the total e-commerce market in Japan by category, sales of products accounts for 10.5 trillion yen, which is 51.9% of total market size. The service category, which includes hotel and the tour booking, accounts for 37%. Digital, which is digital contents such as Netflix subscription and purchasing online games, accounts only for 11.1%. This shows that Japanese people are spending more money on buying the goods online rather than on service or digital content. This is a breakdown of what's kind of good and things they're actually buying from online by detailed category. Apparel, food and beverage, electronics, computer accounts for the huge amount of product shopping. This shows how much each industry could adapt e-commerce site for their sales. The EC adaptation rate is food and beverage industry is 2.89%, which is relatively lower. This is because the size of total food and beverage market is in huge Japan. The total market size is greater than 60 trillion yen. The category in food and beverage with the highest growth is healthy food product, such as green juice or healthy tea. Another category, which is estimated to grow more, is cosmetic goods. While many people still hesitate to buy cosmetic products online without trying them, online shopping sales have been growing fast from repeated customers who tried the product at the physical store before online purchasing, or young customers who are influenced by Instagram or other review sites. Also, new technology such as AR, augmented reality, VR, virtual reality, and AI, or new type of services such as subscription-based services, have been escalating the sales of those cosmetic products on online shopping. I will introduce one of the interesting case study for the later about this cosmetic product and technology later of this webinar. So, which device are they using for online shopping? This graph shows you that the changes in the smartphone uses of online shopping for these 5 years. As same as in the United States, online shopping through the smartphones has been increasing drastically. In 2019, 42.6% of online shopping was coming from a smartphone in Japan. This means that if you're selling your products online, you have to make a user-friendly site, not only for the PC users, also for the smartphone users. Excuse me. Okay, next slide. I summarized some factors of how the COVID-19 impacted on the EC industry in Japan on this slide. Unfortunately, the Ministry of Economy, Trade and Industry didn't issue our 2020 report yet, so I couldn't use the same reports for these numbers. But according to other resources, the COVID-19 pandemic has encouraged seniors to start online shopping a lot, and many seniors are estimated to keep enjoying online shopping even post-COVID. The demand for the e-commerce market is estimated to increase by 26.1%, and this is obviously become bigger than we estimated because of the COVID-19 impact. The product sales from online shopping is also estimated to increase to about 12 trillion yen. Online food and beverage shopping sales has drastically increased by COVID-19 impact. That increase is 19.4% only from food and beverage online shopping. And also the size in 2020 in this category is about 2.3 trillion yen. Especially sales of food and beverage online shopping, such as farm-to-table concept or premium exclusive food is very popular due to multiple state emergencies in Japan, which made many people stay home and cannot go out for the eating and drinking. As the last part of industry insight, I like to show our market share of the e-commerce platform side in Japan. Regarding the e-commerce multi-platform business, Rakuten is the biggest and slightly bigger than Amazon. According to some reports, Rakuten is a preferable platform for seniors. Amazon is popular for the young generation due to the extra services such as Amazon Prime, and the shipping cost is free. Yahoo Shopping ranked as the third EC mall service, and the Yahoo Auction is an auction site which is C2C marketplace. Mercari is also auction and a C2C market service. When I say C2C, sorry, it's a consumer-to-consumer service, which was established. Mercari was established in 2013 and underwent IPO at the Tokyo Stock Exchanges in 2018. Before they IPO'd, they expanded to their business into US in 2014, but they more recently, very active in the US market, and especially promoting their brand awareness, such as doing a campaign in Super Bowl commercials. ZOZOTOWN is a huge fashion EC site, but sold a majority shares to SoftBank and Yahoo Japan in 2019. Next, I like to talk about history and background of e-commerce industry in Japan, so you guys can see how the industry had been growing and what's the key factor for the future growth. But before that, please allow me to change the earphone. Something wrong. Okay. Their e-commerce business was kicked off around 1995. Rakuten started 1997. Amazon started to sell books online in 2000 in Japan. In 2000, Google also started their search engine service in Japan. From 2000 to 2010, a lot of e-commerce platforms and players joined the Japanese market. In 2009, a disruptive technology boosted the e-commerce industry. That disruptive technology was a smartphone. Smartphones made it easier for the consumers to access an e-commerce site whenever they want. Another boosting factor that has started in 2009 was shortening delivery time. Rakuten started the Asuraku service, which can allow the customer to receive the package next day. And also Amazon started the Prime service to shorten the shipping times. Through these breakthrough services, the e-commerce industry grew significantly from 2000 to 2010. Around 2015, Japanese e-commerce site grew to the next level, where consumers enjoy multiple shopping channels, including online-offline combinations. This system was called the omni-channel system, OMNI, where the customers could shop either online, offline, or both depending on the location and the cost or the product they want. For example, you can go to the store to see and try the rice cooker at the electronic store, and they order the product at the store online to ship your product to your home, so you don't have to carry heavy rice cooker. Also, cross-border e-commerce was very active for these past 5 years. Many Japanese manufacturers sell their product outside of Japan, and the Japanese customers enjoy shopping for the product outside of Japan through the C2C marketplace, such as eBay and Mercari. Also, e-commerce API providers such as Shopify, Squarespace, and then ECommerce joined the e-commerce market around this year. And then they have been thriving since 2015. Through these new services, more and more small business joined the e-commerce business and could even launch their own EC site instead of relying on big e-commerce mall type platform. In terms of Japanese market, mostly domestic EC API companies are competing in the market. So only Shopify is an international competitive company in Japan, according to my research. There were other innovation key factors that had accelerated the e-commerce of the industry in Japan. Social media has a huge influence, especially on the young generation, and they lead them to purchase sites from the Instagram page. A lot of big companies use LINE as a channel to reach out to their targeted customers efficiently and productively. LINE is a very useful tool, which makes to make a high conversion rate rather than other marketing tools. Since the Japanese are very cost sensitive for both the business side and the consumer side, a lot of e-commerce platforms has created cost-free services. In 2003, Yahoo Shopping started an initial free fee service for any store to open their accounts for free, and it was a remarkable breakthrough, which encouraged a lot of small stores to join e-commerce market. Amazon Prime is very popular for young generation because of free shipping costs in Japan, as an explain. Thriving e-commerce industry made our logistics really innovative too. A lot of delivery companies competing each other with the unique service and efficiency and then low cost. The customer can even choose a time slot to receive the package. With some delivery companies, convenience stores can store your package and you can pick up there whenever you want. These services are very popular for young, busy people who live in metropolitan cities because they barely stay home without the big mailbox. Other interesting delivery services, like in Japan, it's popular and very common for you. You can ship the frozen food or refrigerated food, and they can deliver those products in the frozen truck or something. The payment system has been innovated. The most popular payment system is a PayPay, in which you can use your QR code to pay for anything. Many payment systems started to even an e-commerce site, such as using Suica, transportation card, to pay for your online purchasing and others. Sorry, lots of talking, make me needed some drinks. Okay, let's move to the next part. The third part of this webinar, I would like to show the current trend of the EC market in Japan. For the reference, I use a lot of information from EC no Mikata site, which is a mid-year survey company for Japanese e-commerce. According to EC no Mikata's newest survey, the most selling category at online shopping in Japan is that the fashion category, followed by digital content and house and life and gourmet. Looking by generation and gender, 30 to 40 years old female consumers spend more on the beauty and cosmetic, and the seniors spend more on gourmet food and beverages. House and living and gourmet have been popular category for the female seniors. Through the COVID-19 pandemic, more and more seniors have been buying more beauty and cosmetics due to the limited time for shopping outside of their home, and this trend is estimated to remain post-COVID. In online shopping, Japanese people are very cost-sensitive to product and shipping. Especially, they are sensitive to shipping costs. This is why Amazon is very popular, because you can buy anything without the shipping cost, and they deliver the next day or at least within 2 days. The next thing they care about is rewards and a point system. In this case, Rakuten acquires many active senior female users because of their unique point system. The more payment options you have, the higher the conversion rate you can have. Usually, many e-commerce sites in Japan offer various payment systems, including credit card, Rakuten or Amazon Payment API, paying cash at the convenience store, or using transportation cards such as Suica. The next thing is a review. As I explained in the previous webinar, generations around the 30 to 40 years generation, especially high net worth customers, are very sensitive to the customer reviews. Their purchasing decisions are highly related to how many reviews you have and how good the reviews are. This is the other data that shows why Japanese customers do not buy products online. Many factors are similar to the previous slide, but then one of the interesting things here is that many people do not prefer to buy something they have to try, such as shoes, pants, or cosmetic products they never tried before. While the young generation has more tolerance to buy things online, you should remember that Japanese seniors still do not have the same tolerance. If you target Japanese seniors with the product that would need some trial, engage them to try them here in Hawaii, and encourage them to buy or subscribe the product when they go back to Japan. This data shows that when Japanese consumers are engaging in online shopping, I believe this outcome is coming from Japanese consumer behavior. Probably they checking smartphone after work on the train, while watching TV or during lunchtime. This data is very useful if you're doing a live online channel to promote your product, which is very popular in Japan. These are the other e-commerce trends. As I said before, you should know which platform targets who and what kind of product is selling more than other platforms. depending on your target and the product. Amazon, as I said, Amazon is popular with young people. Rakuten is popular with senior people. If you target the young generation, probably using Instagram posts, stories, and live streaming is the best way to reach out to them to convert them for the purchasing site. You should focus on building a good site with good UI and UX for the smartphones, especially if you target female customers, since 80% of the Japanese female uses smartphone for online shopping. Many businesses use celebrities to promote their product. According to some reports, Matsuko Deluxe, a transgender MC comedian, has a great influence on many Japanese people to know her reviews and whatever she recommends. Okay, so this is my favorite part of this webinar. I like to introduce a couple popular and interesting e-commerce sites that could inspire your business development and then online sites business strategy. The first interesting e-commerce site is called Makuake. Makuake is a combination of crowdfunding and online shopping site. The products and the service are crowdfunded. So whoever is interested in the project can invest and purchase the product with discounts and incentives. This site has recently become very popular, especially with small retail stores who used to target the tourists, but then they can't sell them directly because of the COVID-19 lockdown. Also, the consumers who really looking for a unique and interesting product, but I cannot explore physically in Japan. The next interesting online business is SnackMe. This is a subscription service for a variety of snacks made in Japan. They are operating different from other snack subscription services because they are shipping many kinds of confectionery with a tiny amount. This concept fits our culture very well because Japanese people prefer to enjoy many kinds of things one time, but each size has to be very small. It depends on what kind of flavor. Also, depending on what kind of flavor you want, you can customize it, the flavors. Also, the nutrition you wanted to get from snacks. The next interesting e-commerce business is Dozo. This is my favorite, and then they are the startup that I have a personal connection with. Made in Japan products are very popular, as I mentioned, but the problem is the expensive shipping cost. If customers wanted to ship a minimum, especially if the customers wants to ship the very small amount of the product, it costs a lot of shipping costs per unit. So what they do is something like a grouping concept can be combined with online shopping. First, if you have a product you wanted to sell outside of Japan, you can post your product on this site. Whoever wants to buy their product asks others people to purchase together with a certain amount of certain amount of scale to reduce the shipping cost by purchasing by scale. They have started a trial project with Thailand, and it has been successful, especially foreign people can't get in Japan due to the COVID lockdown. Currently, their service is focusing on only shipping product from Japan to outside, but they are considering expanding into do the same opposite way. Also, if anybody started this kind of platform in Hawaii, it could be very huge opportunity for all retail companies to sell products cross borders with less shipping costs. So last case study is the ZOZOCOSME. ZOZOCOSME is an online shopping site which was established by ZOZOTOWN, which is a mega fashion online site in Japan. The interesting thing they did when they launched this ZOZOCOSME, they created this called ZOZO Glass. which can help the customer to choose the foundation color without trying it at the store. This campaign helps the follow the ZOZO down to increase the subscription by 10%. Lastly, I wanted to close this webinar with summary and a recommendation. As I mentioned in the previous webinar, Japanese customers are not easy to target. Just putting your product on the site and then advertising on the social media will not going to be enough to convince Japanese consumers to purchase your product, especially if your product are available in Japanese market. It is very important to identify your product's competitive advantage and explain it carefully. It is also important to add something value to your product and explain why Japanese consumers can get the benefits from purchasing your products. For example, discounts or incentive or campaign is very attractive Japanese people, such as if you purchase this product online right now, you can get a 20% discount when you shop at my physical store in Hawaii when you come. Japanese people are very cost sensitive, especially for imported product online. It is important to do price positioning analysis on your product and also your competitors. Estimating how much your end price when the consumer actually receive is also might be a good idea to start to see other different options. Also, price positioning analysis is good to find your right target too. Who will be your good target with your price? Who can afford your product? If your product's price is too high, how can you reduce your cost? Or is it even worse targeting Japanese consumers by your online site, considering your business size or resources and workforces? Sorry, I think. Yeah, also the other way to see this cost perspective is that you can, if you have a very premium, exclusive, limited product, they might be convinced to purchase your product despite all the risk and stuff because your product is very exclusive to them. Okay, Japanese consumers are getting used to very convenient logistics too. If they order product domestically, they barely have a delay shipping or exchange product because there are only few of defective products. It is almost impossible to do the same thing in international shipping. Is there any way to put your product on a Japanese logistic? If you can't, how can you reduce the risk for that? And maybe also, as I mentioned in the price positioning, maybe you can convince Japanese consumers to buy your product despite all of the risks because your product is very exclusive, have exclusive value and other stuff. Usually, the rules you have to cover is called Act of a Specified Commercial Transaction if you consumers directly buy your product by small scales. However, a Japanese regulation is very complicated if you are dealing with some specific products such as food, supplements, healthy supplements, cosmetics, and alcohol. You might have to follow the multiple regulations depending on the product you deal with, or you even can't ship it if your products include ingredients you need a special certification, codification, or appropriate processes. Tax rules are also different depending on the product too. Before you actually start the e-commerce site for the Japanese consumers, make sure if your products complies those rules. I highly recommend it to hire the professionals if you're selling complicated product and see if it's worth for your cost, effort, and time to start. there are a lot of e-commerce platforms, including typical mobile platform or a C2C kind of platform. It is important to see and analyze those options and select the right one depending on your product targets and your business type. For example, if you're selling the beauty products targeting late 30 to 40 years old female, Rakuten might be the best to start trial to see how much sell as long as your products comply regulations and pass the qualification to open accounts at Rakuten. If you're selling the jewelries targeting young generation, opening D2C store by Shopify and promoting by Instagram might be the best. Looking at a lot of EC platform options is good, but you should remember you need a Japanese address and a bank accounts at the most of Japanese e-commerce platform to open the accounts. So if you wanted to know about how actually you can start the accounts at the Rakuten or Amazon Japan, please stay tuned on our next webinars. I'm going to invite Rakuten and Amazon experts who can explain how the non-Japanese business can open the accounts and what something that you should be focused or careful on to open the e-commerce platform in Japan. Okay, thank you very much for listening. But then that was my last slide for this webinar. I'd like to move to Q&A session to answer your question.
Thanks, Takaho.
Thank you.
So we have a question from Cora.
Okay.
How do we connect with Matsuo Deluxe? Via a manager, or is there contact info?
Oh, she's kind of very big agent. She belongs to big agency. So I'm not sure. I think you have to contact their agency she's belonging, but it's almost impossible and very expensive.
Okay. So, for the different platforms, we have a lot of food manufacturers. So what kind of platform do you think the food manufacturers should try out first?
Usually Rakuten is more popular for the food because, as I said, senior female is kind of their target. And then, so especially I've been seeing a lot of kind of premium confectionery, especially if they want to order for the gift. Or, yeah, so like cookies, chocolates, but then like the package has to be very beautiful.
So would you say it would help to get your product in physical stores in Japan first before trying out e-commerce? Would that help to build the consumer trust?
I mean,
or does it not matter?
Could be, yes. I mean, I think when I'm looking at a lot of manufacturer in Hawaii, might be too risky to start importing because of regulations. You might have to give the exclusive right to distributor, right? So if you have some enough resources and capital, opening like concept shop, a pop-up shop, and some area that you have, the area you think they're your target, and then they see how their reaction and get their feedback. For example, I think eggs and things become very popular and successful in Japan because it's actually a location where the people come in, right? So, and I know some of the microbrewing here, they planning to go to Japan, and I think that will be very good strategy to have actual store where the people try their beer, right? And then they want to keep drinking the beer, so they might order online shopping from some distributor, and that's also a good strategy to attract the distributor importer. As I explained last webinar, I don't recommend you to approach to the distributor importer because they can take advantage of you. So it's such a good idea for them to come to you, and then you can do diligence for those distributor and importer if they're the right person, and then you can give them some kind of condition that you want to go with them.
Okay. And Cora has another question. If Matsuo Deluxe Deluxe is expensive as an influencer. Who is a better and more accessible influencer agency or individual we should contact? Any suggestions specifically for young Japanese women and men?
I know some of the agency that are kind of like, sorry, but I don't remember the name. It's just my friend's company. And they have a lot of young YouTubers, comedian. So the hardest part of to hire those influencers in Japan is really like based on the contract base, and they barely speak English. So probably, as I explained in previous webinar, looking for small digital marketing company in Hawaii, I'm sorry, Japan, and ask them, hey, this is what I want. Do you guys have any agency, or who is your portfolio for the influencer? Or I help a couple of like projects to introducing some influencer before, because I know some friends who run those agency, but of course I have there's some cost happening.
Right. Okay. We have another question. I'm a manufacturer interested in expanding into Japan. What would be the next steps I should take?
So they already have a manufacturer in Japan, or sorry?
No, they're manufacturing only in Hawaii, but like what would the first step be for a person, for a manufacturer to go to Japan?
Okay, so first, you should do like competitive analysis. Go to Rakuten Japan or Amazon Japan, and then Google. Put in for example, if you manufacture chocolate, like chocolate in Japanese, you put there, and you can see a lot of ranking of like best selling chocolate in Rakuten. And then you should look for why they're selling very well, and then what's the package, and what's their core competence. Also, how much is the price? And after you analyze those competitors, you should identify what's your core competence. What is so special for you? What is the most special thing for your product? What makes your product different from those products? And then taste good or high quality, that's not going to be the one, because they already very high quality and a good taste. So you should find something core competence besides good quality or good taste good.
So identifying what differentiates your product from the rest of the market, basically.
Yeah.
So you would recommend the consumer studies just by looking on Rakuten at your competitors? Mm-hmm. Is there anything else you'd want to do?
So after you identify your product, maybe you should like I would suggest you maybe start something small. Maybe if you have an opportunity to join Hankyu Fair or anything to access to Japanese, maybe you should do like focus group and then get the feedback. And then if you think this is worth, maybe I will probably start a shop. It depends on what product, but then if it's jewelry or apparel that doesn't have so much strict regulation, I would probably start Shopify store individually and open the Instagram account to see what kind of feedback with a less cost.
So for something like apparel, you would open up your own website versus going on Rakuten, or would you do both?
If it depends on what kind of apparel you have, but then usually if you have a brand story, I don't recommend you to go to Amazon or Rakuten, because it fits their platform, right? So they can sell more like a technology, computer, or like more food that needs more detailed description, not like image capture. So if you were dealing with fashion, I think making the individual platform and then sharing those cool images and whatever news story you have is better than put in a platform.
Okay, great. We have another question. So my Shopify store is in English. Would one landing page in Japanese to introduce my business be enough, or do I need to convert the whole website into Japanese?
So they can read English. Most of the Japanese is studying for 12 years, but they just like have they have a panic attack when they say English. So maybe the menu bar, some look the terminology or modern, you don't have to because they can capture it. But then like I highly recommend it to make whole of a Japanese website. To even like it's cost wise, you should hire a professional translator or web designer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I know shipping is kind of a big deal for the Japanese customers. So would you recommend building some of the shipping costs into the original price of the product, or how else would you mitigate that issue?
I think it really depends on the product. I mean, if I'm selling super high-end product, let's say arts, the painting, I'm not going to include a shipping cost because they can easily estimate the shipping cost is very expensive, but I have to clearly describe. And I think that's the guideline for you to open the shop. You have to, regardless you include it or not, you have to show how much the shipping cost and tax is going to cost. If it just, let's say, I want to sell the cookie box, it's very high end, $60. I'm probably not going to include it, the price and tax. But I think it really depends. Like I would really research how the other competitors are doing.
And are Japanese people, do they like subscription boxes, or would you recommend not doing a subscription box? Do they just like to buy things when they want to buy them? Or
so the Japanese subscription services is still kind of on the growing side. Not a lot of people are familiar with it, but then a lot of people start if that's more daily shopping, grocery shopping, like toilet paper or detergent. So I assume that most of the product is not like that from Hawaii. So if you start a subscription, it has to be something super fancy, like it's like a Hawaii box with a lot of Hawaii products, or something have to innovate it and very good reason for them to subscription, or something. I think it should include it with some kind of digital contents. Like they're not gonna buy just a box every month, but then if come with, let's say, oh, with this box you will do English language with the local people with the box. Like that could be many attractive to them. It's like, oh, I can learn English, and then also I can enjoy the product.
okay. So we have kind of a statement from Jorma. Not really a question, but she says she wants to make the suggestion regarding intellectual property, that you should, every business going into Japan should be sure to secure their .jp domain name before trying to do anything, as there have been experiences where distributors have bought the .jp domain name without the brand owner's consent. So that's definitely something to look out for.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Jorma. So I know you talked about packaging being super important. So what kind of packaging do Japanese people gravitate towards?
So the package is like, it's two type of package, right? I mean, you can't change the package that have to be shipped, but then when they open, it has to be something like, wow. So especially if your price point is very high, it has to be look pretty. For example, it's more like wrapping. So because a lot of people want to buy this product for the gift, so it has to be like have a ribbon or a colorful box, depending on product. Like if it's like, especially if you're doing fashions category, maybe follow the theme that you have, and then don't put it and just throw it away and then ship it to Japan, because usually Japanese manufacturer package very well and even put in some wrapping, beautiful wrapping. So it really depends on product, but then you have to be very unique for the package too.
And what about the product size? You know, should they keep the same size? You know, for example, the chips or the cookies, would they want a different product size in Japan?
Yeah, so I think when I'm looking at an American product, the portion is too big. They like the small size with a lot of things. So I don't know how. I think they will be very changed. It depends on the product, the collection. But then usually when I'm looking, like even the bar, like cereal bar or anything, like it's just too big and too expensive. Like, so they will pay for the more money or more premium with different variety. So I think before you consider package, maybe consider what's the size of your product, and then go to the package. How might be the appropriate for this size of package?
Mm-hmm. Great. And maybe one last question. So what is the culture of the return policy in Japan? You know, it's pretty common practice in the US here. Is it the same with the Japanese consumers?
It's almost same. I think they have 2 or 3 months, depends on the product, 2 or 3 months returning policy. But a huge difference from Japan and US is like we barely return. Even like physical store or online shopping, because we think it's so annoying to ship it back. Like unless you have some super special reason, most of people kind of give up to returning, especially for online. But it means they're not going to return, meaning that if they don't like it or they found that this is very something lack of something or not what they think, they're not going to buy ever again. So you cannot even get the feedback. That's a very difficult part. But then, yeah, I know that the return ratio is tolerance is very different. Yeah.
So more they just won't buy from you again in the future.
Yeah.
But they'll keep the product at one time.
Yeah. And then the review, as I said, the review is very sensitive topic for them. And then they don't even they said so much bad review and they're not gonna come back.
Great. All right, well, thank you so much, Takaho. A lot of useful information. So before we wrap up, a quick reminder for the audience that this webinar has been recorded and will be shared via email, and we'll also be sharing the slides. And our next webinar in our e-commerce in Japan series will be a deep dive into Amazon Japan. It will be moderated by Takaho, as she said. And we will also be doing a series of webinars with Shopify. And you can find all of our upcoming webinars on our website. So thank you for joining us today. If you're interested in any services from Innovate Hawaii, including e-commerce, workforce, food safety, lean, and more, please do not hesitate to reach out to us. Mahalo.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.